Welcome, everyone, and good evening. This is the October 30th, 2018 Ogden City Council meeting. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present, with the exceptions of Councilmember White, who has asked to be excused tonight. We will turn the time to Vice Chair Nadolski for our opening ceremony, Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Chair Heyer. I've asked Waters Nelson from Troop 166 if he would lead us this evening. Come on up.
It's always good to have scouts here to do this for us.
Okay, well, will everybody stand up, follow me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
They don't go away. Matter of fact, why don't you bring the rest of your troop up and just tell us your name and what you're here working on. Can you do that? Come on, young man. It's really good to see you all in your uniforms. Just go one at a time and tell us who you are and what you're working on.
My name is Waters Nelson. I'm working on the Citizenship of America merit badge. Is that what it's called? Yeah.
I'm Casey Daniels. I'm working on the Citizenship of America merit badge.
My name is Tristan Hipwell, and I'm working on Citizenship merit badge.
My name is Nathaniel Elrutter, and I'm working on the Citizenship merit badge.
My name is Neo Law, and I'm working on the Citizenship of a merit badge.
My name is Elijah Thornton, and I am working on the Citizenship of a merit badge.
My name is Ammon Taft, and I'm also working on the Citizenship merit badge.
Thanks, you guys. You look sharp. What are you guys working on back there in the uniforms? All right. Thank you. Go ahead and have a seat.
Mr. Chair, it's nice to see that they're in uniform. It
is.
That's adds credit to their leadership of their troop.
Yes, it is. Now, if you would please join us for a moment of silence. And thank you. First item on our agenda tonight is our common consent portion of our agenda. First is the Native American Heritage Month. Just as a note, this is something that will be presented later on in the month on November 20th. And so since it is declaring a month-long event, we thought we better get it before the month starts. So it's on a common consent agenda for tonight. The second is the Board of Zoning Adjustments reappointments, along with some Christmas Village Committee appointments, and then a resolution for housing affordability. So I will look for a motion to approve the common consent agenda.
Chair Heyer, I make a motion that we adopt the common consent items as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lopez, a second by Councilmember Blair to approve the common consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next item on our agenda is reports from the Planning Commission. The first item is the proposed rezone at 424 Washington Boulevard. And I think we have Mr. Montgomery here tonight. Is that
Clint Spencer, I think,
Clint?
will be presenting
Clint Spencer's
that.
going to present for us tonight.
And he's looking forward to it.
Sure he is.
I did. He's like, come on.
Welcome, Mr. Spencer.
All right. Well, it's good to be with you this evening. This has been a long, ongoing process, and we're glad to see it come before the council for a final decision. So this is the petition to amend the community plan and rezone some property on the corner of North Street and Washington Boulevard. The current zoning on it right now is R2 and R4. I'm going to go back in the process a little bit. I'll try to speed it along. I know this has been kind of raked over the coals a few times, so we'll try to give some information that might be helpful for those that are in the audience here. For the community plan for this area, it was completed in 2010, and the applicant is proposing a 2-lot development with a car wash as one option, and then a car wash and a convenience store as another option. So the process and the steps taken, the first, this all began when the applicant came in and wanted to put in a car wash at a certain location. In meeting with the staff, with the planners, he was directed to try to acquire more property and do an overall development, which they went out and put offers on all of the property between Washington and the new fire station. They've been to several DRT meetings, and then they went through the application process in Planning Commission. In April, it was proposed to go to a strict, well, just to be rezoned to a C2 zone. The Planning Commission requested that the city staff go back and look at a different proposal that would help kind of preserve the neighborhood plan requirements of the NC zone and come back with a conditional overlay option, which we did. And then that was discussed in June. At that point, there was some mixed reviews on whether or not the proposal as it was proposed should move forward, or if there's other considerations that could be taken into consideration. So at the city council work sessions, the original proposal was just for the car wash on the corner lot, and then to have a vacant lot there. But there was some concern that we're just moving one vacant lot to another. So we've worked with the applicant and finding another use for the property, which would be a convenience store. And together, that would fill the entire site. So once that went to City Council and a new site plan was revised, went back to Planning Commission for a recommendation on the site plan, and now we're back at the City Council for a final decision. So since we met last in our city work session or City Council work session, we've worked with the applicant to update the development agreement, and this would allow for two options. First option is to have just a car wash on the corner. Second option is to have a car wash and a convenience store together as a site plan. Let's see if I... So this is the original option. So you can see here, this is just with the car wash proposed on the corner lot. The second lot would be vacant. It would be held to NC1 development standards and uses. And then the second option, as the applicant's proposed and as it would be another viable option in terms of the development agreement, is to have the car wash and the convenience store located on the same property. I'll try to kind of point out a couple of things. So the car lot in this situation would be moved to the northern part of the property. It's still 15 feet away from the property line. And I'll go over a few items of concern maybe, but one of the things that we requested is that there be a buffering between the car wash and the residential neighbors to the north. There'll be some trees planted on the north side here. It's an increased setback Typically, that's only a 10-foot required setback, so we're requiring 15 feet. And then the landscaping on this side as well, adjacent to the fire station. There'll be landscaping along the front at a 20-foot buffering along the frontages of North Street and Washington Boulevard. The gas station sits here, the convenience store portion anyways, and then the gas pumps would be out front here. So just kind of a little graphic representation of how this would look. Again, the green represents the landscaping. That's not necessarily saying that they're going to be doing grass and sod, but they'll be doing landscaping in those green areas. Typically, the applicant has proposed to do a kind of a water-wise type of development, which the city approves and allows and recommends for large projects. So this is kind of a graphic representation of what that second option would look like. So in terms of the development agreement, some of the things that are required is that the applicant purchase all the property between Washington and the fire station, which they have. The NC zone standards apply with specific exceptions on the windows, the heights of the building, the build-to lines, and the uses. Additional landscaping, as I mentioned, required to protect residential properties and along the street frontages, and to install a 7-foot masonry fence along the northern property line. And then the driveway accesses, as it's shown here, the driveway accesses will be determined by the city engineer and UDOT together to define exactly where those accesses will be as it comes through a site plan review process. So that's for the first option. For the second option, those first three apply. We're acquiring all the property, the landscape buffering, and removing all of the homes and getting the property ready for development. In addition, as I mentioned before, the driveway accesses will be determined by the engineer and by the city engineer and UDOT. And as was brought up, I guess, in the meeting before, the applicant or the city engineer has been working with UDOT and has received approval for a right-in, right-out on Washington Boulevard.
Right-out only.
Just a right-out only. Okay, so right-out only. I guess it wouldn't make sense to drive into the car wash as people are coming out. So it'd be a right-out only access from the car lot. So that will be, I guess we'll leave that up to the applicant how he wants to move forward with that. So in terms of noise mitigation, one of the things that this proposal here provides is that the car wash faces to the south. So that noise exiting the car wash would be directed to the south, where there's not residential homes or anything like that. And then so if the car wash exits onto Washington, as is now a possibility, then installing a 10-foot masonry fence directly adjacent to the car wash exit would be required to buffer that noise from the residents to the north. And then another requirement for this proposal was to install a pedestrian access to give, there's the public sidewalk here, and then from the public sidewalk, pedestrians could access the convenience store with this just an access that would be kind of like a stamped concrete or something that differentiate it from the rest of the pavement, so people would be expecting pedestrians there. These are some of the proposed elevations. In terms of materials and development type, it still will follow the standards of the NC1 zone, which require a base body and a cap. The colors are muted down from what they normally install, which is kind of a bright green and bright yellow. These are muted down colors that would comply with the NC zone. And then this black and white elevation just shows the elevation of the car wash exiting to the south, if that's the option that the applicant decides to go with. And those are all included in the development agreement as well. So going back to the Planning Commission recommendations, in terms of amending the community plan, it was a pretty split vote. They really couldn't decide on whether or not to amend the community plan to allow for the zoning to take place. They did make a motion to rezone the property to NC1, which is approved 7-1. And then as the revised site plan came back to them, there was a vote of approval for 5-3. And then the opposing votes, the 3 opposing votes, cited their noncompliance, cited their votes as they didn't feel the site plan complied with the community plan. So tonight, what you'll consider, I guess, is whether or not to amend the zoning to the C2 CO zone with a proposed development agreement, which includes the 2 options for the properties we've discussed, or you could rezone the property to NC1, or you could deny the rezone request. So if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer what I can.
Any questions for Mr. Spencer?
I have a couple.
Councilmember Stevens, go ahead.
On the fuel trucks to service the gas pumps, where would they come in and how would they access their storage capacity there?
That will be, that can be resolved during a site plan process. I suspect that the access will be coming from North Street, where the only access from Washington is a right in, right out. So I'm not, the location of these accesses could change. There'll likely only be one access on North Street. So, where that's going to be and how they'll route the fuel trucks through there will be addressed at the site plan process.
You know how wide those access are?
The maximum width for those would be 50 feet.
On North Street?
On North Street.
What about Washington?
Same. For a commercial access, it's 50 feet.
It's going to be 14. It's
Or-
right out at 14.
Yeah. For this, to accommodate the traffic coming out of a one-lane car tunnel,
Going
pretty
back
much narrow.
to the plan, what about your dumpsters? Where would they be located? Because I'm sure 7-Eleven would have to have a dumpster.
Right. And those issues will be addressed. The idea will be to keep them away from residential neighborhoods or from the residential area. They could be located, somewhere along the north, between the 2 properties here, or on the backside of 7-Eleven. But those will all be issues that will be kind of looked at and discussed during the site plan process. These plans are they're conceptual, meaning that these are the general idea. There could be some slight modifications and changes as we go through the site plan process and in terms of approval. But those will all be issues that we look at during that process.
We will have a chance to hear from the developer also. But like Mr. Spencer says, some of those things are yet to be determined because of site plan that still needs to happen. So those are just kind of details that kind of get worked out after we do our thing.
So what we see here is the basic concept of how it would be laid out there. Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Spencer? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to give Mr. Ernest, as the petitioner, a minute to go ahead and tell us about anything he thinks we ought to know.
Yes, Chair Heyer, thank you so much. Joseph Ernest, 492 West, 1200 North, Springville. Clint mentioned it, and I'll mention it again. So this started in December of last year, and it's been a long path to this point. It started with a call to Joseph, your planner, Joseph. Great, he has a great first name, by the way. And he said, yeah, C2 on this corner would be great. And then I followed it up with I met with Eric in his office, another planner here. He said, I even think a C3 would be great for this corner. And then Joseph said, but don't come to us with an application unless you have every property, every parcel under contract, all the way from the corner to the fire station. So then we went to work. And actually the homeowners of those parcels and the owners of those parcels are here. And it's great to have their support. Also, even though Clint and Greg have been generally against the site plan or the uses for the corner, hats off to them. It's been a year process. They're phenomenal. It's been great to work with them. And so thank you to them. Clint and I have gone back and forth on this development agreement so many times. So it's great to be where we are. And I think we have something that'll work even for the convenience store. I've had technical issues in the past with city council meetings and planning commission meetings, so I've become a bit of a Luddite, and I have a little bit of a handout for you, but don't be intimidated. It'll be fast. Is that all right, Chair Heyer? Permission to approach the bench?
Adam to Brandon right there.
Okay. Perfect. So there's some writing in there. I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to tell you about it, but at least you'll have something handy for you to know about the Quick Quack Car Wash later on. If you need to fall asleep tonight, it'll be good, although I think it's kind of exciting. So I'd like to speak to the car wash. None of you have had the opportunity, even though you've heard about the development, to know anything about the business. And long before I had this position in this role, I was a Quick Quack member. So I signed up for a monthly membership at Spanish Fork before I'm doing what I'm doing now. Who am I? I work with Lone Star. I'm their general counsel and director of real estate entitlements, and we are the exclusive developer and construction arm of Quick Quack in Utah, parts of Texas, parts of Colorado, and they have 68 locations currently operating Quick Quack Car Wash, and Texas, Colorado, Utah, California, Arizona, for now. And if you're a member at any single location, you're a member at every location. And there's some amazing things that Quick Quack does to get involved in the community. And that's why when actually the owner of Lone Star Builders approached me to do this role, I was so intrigued because my experience at the Spanish Fork Quick Quack Car Wash was not like any other experience I have at other businesses. In fact, their name was at every high school football game that I went to. They had a parade float. Actually, I think it's the second to last picture in that packet is me with my son. And there's a mini parade float that's a replica of the car wash tunnel. And we have a mascot, Quaggles, who will be at all your events and your parades. And that's awesome. And they get involved in the community, and we want to be involved in the Ogden community and be commercial citizens here. And that's really what this is about. In addition to that, at the Spanish Fork location and locations after that, they have marketed in the community a month in advance of the grand opening a fundraiser. And they usually get from a city council member or a planning commissioner or the mayor or some staff member, a family or person in the community who is legitimately in need. And they'll go on the Ogden social media and they'll advertise. Our marketer will advertise that person's need and say, please come to the Quick Quack Car Wash on such and such a date and donate to that person and that family, and we will donate car washes. You get a free wash, you donate to this person. And then Quick Quack matches the cumulative sum of those donations and gives it to that person at the grand opening. And it's been so phenomenal to see a company that is more than just they actually do stuff. It's incredible. So it's great to get involved. So for instance, at Highland, we presented a $9,300 check to a senior in Lone Peak who has a very rare form of cancer that even Primary Children's doesn't know what it is. And it's phenomenal to be a part of. And there's other stories that are phenomenal to be a part of. And inevitably, those people usually come from these meetings. So be thinking, if you approve it, hypothetically, fingers crossed, legs are crossed, if this goes forward. In addition, after the car wash grand opening, we provide 10 days of free premium car washes to the community. From 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. in the winter, our hours, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. in the summer. So if we're opening in the winter, it'll be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. of free car washes. We've washed now in Utah, there's 14 operational locations, 147,000 cars for free. So there'll be a lot of clean cars in Ogden during those 10 days. I promise you that. And then after that, we're just going to do our best to get involved in the community. Other things that are different from us and other car washes is we actually have employees on site that are wearing white shirt and ties. A lot of car washes don't do that. They're coin operated. They're open 24/7. They tend to be dirty, eyesores. This is different in a big way. Also, Quick Quack is a member of a water conservation group. I know, a little bit counterintuitive. However, we're only using 12 gallons of water, fresh water per vehicle. That's amazing. If you're in your driveway or me in my driveway, we're going to use 170 to 200 gallons of water washing our own cars in our driveway. So we're saving water by being in the community, and we invest quite a bit in the reclamation and recycling process that goes on underneath that tunnel. In addition, we pay, in order to be a good neighbor, and this is the next issue, right? So we're next to residences. Here in Utah and other states, we're very used to being next to residences. And the typical disturbance when you're next to residences and you have a normal car wash would be sound, well, and potentially traffic. So what we do is we actually, at great cost to us, we buy more land than we need. Why do we do that? So that we can contain all of the traffic on the site. That's part of the user experience, and we're investing extra in the site being massive. Further, our sound generating materials, we invest a lot of money, R&D, in trying to mitigate that sound. The vacuum canopies themselves, after you use the wash, after you go through the tunnel, you could come back, circle back, and use any of our vacuum stalls for free. A lot of these car washes have a central vacuum engine per stall. It's really loud. We don't do that. We have one central vacuum engine that's enclosed, like our trash enclosure. It's the same. We'll use the same material as our building, and that mitigates the sound in a tremendous way. Further, our dryer vents that blow the vehicle dry, which is the loudest part of the wash that remains, is further mitigated. And in this case, Clint spoke to it. All of the concerns with sound, the 10-foot wall would be there if we use the west exit of the tunnel. If we don't, we have an actual in the tunnel exit. So the car would actually finish their wash while still in the tunnel and then exit, and their turn would be while inside of the tunnel. So it's just to further mitigate the sound. In addition, I've added for you guys in these in that packet pictures here of what the car wash would generally look like. There's elevation images for you of our Highland location and Saratoga locations. So this is our Highland location. Our color scheme, our muted earth tone color scheme that we're complying with because of the NC standards, would be comparable to the images I've shown you. However, this shows CMU. We won't be using CMU because the NC standards won't allow CMU, so it'll be even more unique than that. Further, this is a rezone with a potential development. This morning received really great news from UDOT on the exit or access onto Washington. My civil engineer went to UDOT 3 months ago, and they told him, Region 1 told him there's a moratorium on any accesses on Washington, which is incredible. So this morning, after an hour, we have an a right out only onto Washington, which is further kind of like a mini win to even more likely that we'll have a convenience store there on the south, which 7-Eleven legitimately wants to go there. And we have to circle back with them on the accesses. And I've already talked to Justin on the accesses on North Street, Justin Anderson, your city engineer, and we're pretty confident we're going to line it up with Lowe's. It'll be the same width as Lowe's. And I think with that and a ride out only onto Washington, it's for sure great for the quick quack, but I think it's also great for the convenience store. So it's been a lot of work, a lot of hurdles as we've jumped through, wins and losses, and we're here where we are, and I think it can work really well, even for a convenience store. It will work for the car wash. But ultimately, this is one of the heaviest traffic intersections in Ogden, which is why we want it. And so it's not, for it to continue to be a residential use to me, it's like, it doesn't fit at all. I mean, there's great analogies for that, oil and water, keep going on other analogies that don't fit. But there's a Lowe's to the south, there's a Walmart to the west, and those are also surrounded with residences, and you have mitigating ordinances for residences to ensure that the residences are also taken care of. But we just want the opportunity to compete for business here in Ogden. That's what this is about. And you, the government, get to decide if we, the business, get to enter Ogden. And we're trying to. A year in the making, we're trying to be here. And we want to service your citizens. It's up to you. Please, fingers crossed. Thank you. Any questions for me? I'm here.
Any questions for Mr. Ernest?
Yeah. Yeah, cougar. What? There's a cougar there? What?
BYU cougar in the packet.
How did that get in there? I might be a BYU alum. I just
wanted to remind the petitioner that we're in Wildcat country.
Well, we'll get Quaggles and that mascot together.
Oh, Waldo is his name.
Waldo? Where's Waldo? Okay, I like that.
I'm not sure Waldo's going to be as nice to him as we'll see.
Waldo looks better than the cougar.
So did you really analyze traffic patterns there and quantify traffic volume there compared to the rest of the city and arrive here
Yes.
Based on a real number?
Uh-huh, yeah. There are traffic counts there that our brokers have. I don't have them off the top of my head. If I knew you wanted them, I could have gotten them for you.
I was
But
just
it's in the
curious.
tens of thousands on Washington. And then on North Street, it's under 10,000, which is why it was really important for us to have access on Washington. But Washington, if I recall, it's between 30 and 40,000 is the traffic count. So, yes, absolutely.
I was just curious, when you made the comment, I didn't have a number in my head. I've stood on the corner, but,
Yeah.
okay, thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I have a couple. I'd like to address the lighting. How is that going to encroach on the neighborhood
Oh, good.
around?
I'm glad you did. It's actually in your packet. I didn't speak to it. But our lighting is generated to not exit the site, not escape the site. In addition, we have automatic timers that will turn off all site lights at 10 p.m. And they won't turn on until they're needed the next day. But the building lights will remain on for security. That's it.
But it doesn't encroach into the neighborhood? Or
No, that would be a bad thing.
The other question I have is I'd like to go to the parking. Greg, how many parking stalls do they have there? Do you know?
It's enough per your current code, the C-store, the convenience store. It's enough per your current code, but Clint and I have talked, and there's actually potentially on the site room for more parking when we get that far. Just Clint and I have talked about that as well.
Then the sound, Chair, you and Ben went to one of their operations.
Yeah, we were coming back from the golf tournament, the Irma golf tournament, and went and got our car washed and went through there, and it's a pretty quality car wash. The noise, as we exited, we thought that's a lot of noise, but we got out of the car and walked in front of it and walked over into the area that's where our residents would be in relationship to this car wash, and it was hardly noticeable. It was mitigated very well, the noise was. The street that it is on, it's on Hillfield Road in Layton, that's one we went to. It's not nearly as busy as Washington is. And so we felt like that, there's a lot more road noise than there is car wash noise. So we felt like it was probably a pretty good fit for that location because of those factors. So
I thought it was really the only noise was coming out of the chute when the dryer, and it clearly went out into Hillfield Road. In this alignment, it'd be into Washington Boulevard. But when we walked around the side, there was almost zero noise on the. That was where I was worried about, is how would the residents be affected? And behind their back wall was very quiet.
And they had a 5-foot wall, not a 7-foot wall.
It'll be 10 now, actually,
Yeah.
Which is where it might actually be needed there, which was good to see. So.
It'll definitely take care of it.
Yeah.
The other concepts that we've looked here, I know it's been a long time, and one of the reasons it is because of the community that it's going into. That has been a residential there, and of course with the community plan. And I think Greg has done, and his staff has done a great job in trying to protect not only the community plan, but the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah, they have.
And he has to do that.
There's been a ton of concessions for the city, and he's done a great job.
That's his responsibility. And now, what we have now, we have a plan that not only protects the community plan, but also the neighborhood, but also develops I think, a better conceptual operations for your business. And with that in mind, I think you'll be successful and with the opportunities there. But that's what we're looking at, that we need to not only protect the neighborhood, but we have to adhere to those rules and governing aspects that the community plan has for us. So my hat's off to Greg and the Planning Commission in trying to look at both aspects. We're not against businesses coming in, but we have to adhere to those rules and operations there. The other thing I hope you do, you have from your pictures and that, you have a high quality operation. I hope that we can address that to the 7-Eleven, that when they come in, they need to have a high-quality operations by which would complement your business there. And that would be my concern, is that we hope 7-Eleven would grasp and get the view and the focus on that opportunity that's before them. That could be a high-quality place for that type of an operation. The other is, I'm glad Ben brought out that we have a Wildcat, but in July we have what we call Pioneer Days Parade. You could actually put your float in that if you'd want to do that.
We'd love to. We would love to.
But those are the things that I had in question, is that I'd hope that the next segment of 7-Eleven is of the same stature and the quality that you're looking at. And
yeah, I'd like to speak to that, and Clint is probably trying to say the same thing I'm about to say. So the development agreement ensures that the design standards of both the car wash and the convenience store are the NC design standards. So the muted colors and the actual elevation materials we're using are congruent and comply with the NC standards for the most part. There's a couple exceptions like the window heights and things because it looks better on a car wash that's tall. But the convenience store will have to comply with those and be similarly aesthetically appealing to the car wash because of the development agreement, which is great. And then to that point, the development agreement also speaks to all of the concerns that the residences might have. That, like you said, they did a great job. And then really what we're after here is the master plan allows the NC1 and the NC2. The NC2 has significantly more allowed uses than an NC1, but all we're doing here is an NC1 plus 2 uses. So for all intents and purposes, it's like NC1 plus 2. So it's pretty in line with the master plan as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. We'd like to receive public input on this. If you'd like to address this petition, if you could come up and give us your name for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes, we'd appreciate it.
3 minutes?
Yep, sorry.
My name is Linda, and I'm working on my rezoning badge.
You're out of uniform, Linda.
I live on North Street, 410 North Street, and I've been there for 40 years. It was a wonderful little community at one time. Thoroughly loved it. Then Walmart decides that they're going to come into the community. Harrisville makes it possible, and they put in Walmart, a strip mall, and the eateries. That displaced 5 families. Then Ogden City, they come and let Lowe's come in, which is good for business, but that also displaced 9 other families. Then you've got the fire station 3. It's a wonderful state-of-the-art fire station, but it displaced 1 family and a small farm. And it's got sirens and lights that go off at 3 and 4 in the morning, almost every day. These things are not conducive to my living. It's commercial now. And I am excited at this point in time that we've got a developer after 40 years that wants to finally do something with that property. Not necessarily mine, but the corner. I will add mine to it so it happens. I'm excited to see that whole area finished. Excited about the grass along the sidewalks. I'm excited about the trees that are going to be there. And the convenience store that's going to allow those people that are coming down from the new CARES facility on wheelchairs to get their pop instead of running over to Walmart against all that traffic. So I see the value in this rezoning, and I'm thinking you do too. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Is there anyone else?
My name's Kelly Heights, and I'm one of the property owners as well. And I appreciate what Councilman Stevens said about the Ogden City has a duty to look at previous zoning and follow a community plan and look out for the better of the community. I also love that you're all willing to look at variations and things that come along the way. I was the property owner that sold the fire station, that land. I owned that land and sold that to them and thought it was a great idea. And I was treated very well by the negotiations we did, and I was very for the fire station. I thought it would be a great improvement to the community. I also dealt with Ogden City on the road widening, and I owned with my father the very ugly apartment building that sat close to the road. And we were treated very well by Ogden City and in the road widening. And to a little bit of fault of my own, I'm kind of a handshake type guy. We sat in a meeting as they told us that they needed to widen the road, they needed to tear down that apartment building. And although it was ugly, it provided some good income for my father-in-law who had that paid off, or for my father and I who had that paid off. And it wasn't pretty, and there wasn't a lot we could do with it to make it any prettier. It sat close to the road, but it did provide good income. And we were worried that taking those apartment buildings down would turn our property from an income-producing property to a liability, having to take care of it, clear the weeds, pay the taxes. And we told them, we said, we're worried about the zoning on this property. We're worried that there's not going to be a developer that's going to be willing to go in and put in this neighborhood community. We looked it over. We didn't think that a developer would be willing to put the money into a small development there. And they assured us, they said, this is the highest traffic count intersection north of 12th Street. And other than 12th Street, it's one of the highest in the city. So we have a barrier on the one side of the fire station and a barrier on the other side of Washington Boulevard. And we just want to let you know we appreciate that you're willing to look at this, because as property owners, just as the other property owners spoke, we feel like we know the area very well, and this is a good proposal. We also we compliment the developer for sticking with it for a year and feel like they are committed. We've worked with them, and they've treated us very well in their dealings, and we hope that that you'll consider this. We feel, as the property owner, it's a very good option, and we're excited that they're willing to take all 4 parcels. And thank you. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Thanks, Kelly. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else?
Short here. Good evening. My name is Linda Weaver. My husband Dennis and I own property at 416 North Street. I'm really impressed by what's taken place here. It's taken a long time. We thought we had everything lined up and a lot of hope that this was going to go through. It's not a family-friendly area. We couldn't sell our property if we had to because of that. And here come these developers, and they're like a knight in shining armor, giving us an opportunity to relocate. A lot of time and a lot of work has gone in. Credit to you and the developers. And I believe that this last presentation is probably the best, and I've been to a lot of council meetings. It's the best thing for this piece of property. I think it'll help the community. It'll make it more beautiful. It'll make it safer because we don't have little kids there running around. Hopefully, we don't. And it will benefit those of us that couldn't sell our homes as a family home. So thank you for all of your work, and thank you for allowing us to speak up tonight.
Mrs. Weaver, appreciate it. Anyone else? Okay. Looks like no more public input. Any council comments or questions, or look for a resolution?
I had one question just before, and you might be able to answer it, if not, Clint can.
Okay.
In the NC zone, is there regulations or stipulations on the hours for the convenience store?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if there is or not. I know there is for the sign lighting, so I would assume that they're similar. The sign lighting can only occur from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., but I'm not sure on the convenience store hours.
What about, is there anything in the development agreement that relates to hours?
There is not, no.
I know that the car wash has stated their hours of
that's-
operation, but the convenience store, I think it's probably, 7-Eleven, I think they're not 7-Eleven anymore.
That's what I was
They
joking
probably are all the time, but.
That's what I wondered. That's what I wondered.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there is, just to address a few comments that were brought up in terms of lighting, that there is a section of the development agreement that stipulates, directing all the lighting away from residential areas, and then the lighting is held to the NC1 standard, which is, the signs and all the lighting on site is only allowed from those 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. So.
Yeah, that all is in ordinance, so, that's probably not something we need to be too concerned with because it's already written into ordinance. Okay, any other questions? All right, I'll look for a motion.
The public hearing?
There's not really a public hearing, it's
No?
just public input today on this one.
I make a motion that we adopt proposed resolution 2018-29.
I second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lopez, seconded by Councilmember Stevens, to adopt ordinance 2018-29. This is a roll call vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka?
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Vice Chair Nadolski?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye, that passes. We appreciate your patience and diligence moving through this process. We would like Ogden to be a developer-friendly community, and hopefully we've shown ourselves to be that for you. And I got to say a few things. I was on the Planning Commission for 16 years prior to my service here on the council, and the Mount Lewis Community Plan was one of the last community plans I participated as a planning commissioner, and I was on some of the individual committees that form to give input on these things, and then to come on the council, I felt like when I first heard the planning commission had this tie vote. In other words, didn't make a recommendation on that rezone. I was really confused, and I looked into it a lot and kind of revisited my own recollection and my own memory with respects to that community plan. And there was a lot of talk about the Mount Lewis community being pedestrian friendly and walkable, and those wanted it to be a real friendly place and people interactive. But then, as Vice Chair Nadolski can attest, standing on that corner, it's so auto-centric that it kind of makes that particular feature either very difficult or impossible to attain. So I felt like, I wondered if the Planning Commission got this wrong, and I looked back further, and they didn't. They actually made a recommendation that was in harmony with the community plan. But I think that perhaps maybe this little section of that community maybe was overlooked for its intensity when that community plan was put together. And so I'm happy that this is going forward for you. I know that there are planning commissioners that are thinking we're really making a big mistake here with this because of the community plan, and that was listed in our staff report also. But City Council makes different decisions based on different criteria than planning commissions do, and so depending on which side you're on, this is one of those that was kind of it was difficult. It was not an easy decision to come to. But here we are. So we look forward to having a quality development there, and you've demonstrated your ability to and willingness to stick with it, so we hope you'll continue to do so. Really hope that convenience store happens. That's something that the Mount Lewis community could very well use. So twist some arms. Keep twisting some arms. So
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Chair Heyer, can I make a comment?
Yes, Vice Chair Nadolski.
Well, before y'all go, I just wanted to say thanks for sticking it out. I'm glad that it worked out, not only for you, but for the folks that have been affected by it. I've personally appreciated that you guys have come to our work session, that you've written to us to let us know about the circumstances. I know that this has been hard, and I hope as you look back on your time here, for you doing business here, for you, your life here in your neighborhood, in your city, that you're not reminded of the frustration of the time that this took, but reminded of the professionalism by which you were treated. I think we have absolutely professional staff that, as you said, have treated you great along the way, and they've always done the same for us too. I think what we encountered was, there's a departure from the plan, obviously, and as we considered departing, there were people on both sides of it, right? And like Chair Heyer said, there's probably some commissioners that think we're making a mistake, and I hope those commissioners know that how hard we've thought about this, and we've talked about this a lot and read about it and back and forth. But I do believe that I feel good about the vote I made tonight. I think the most important thing that we did was hear from people and stand on that corner. And I feel good about it. I hope you all feel good about it. And I'm sorry for the time that it took, but appreciate you sticking it out. And thank you to the planning staff. I know that this has been hard on you guys, harder than probably on anybody. You guys have bared the brunt of a lot of the work, so I thank you for. Yeah. Thank you for your expertise and professionalism. So.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Stevens.
I take to heart what the Planning Commission does, because they're important to us in developing our city. And I don't think they got it wrong. I think they looked at the situation when we were step 1. Now we're at step 4, and as Linda mentioned, we have a better product today than when we started out. And I think that's the essence and the importance of the Planning Commission. I think Greg has done a great job in trying to develop what has happened here. The Planning Commission, as I mentioned before, looks at what the neighborhood should look like and what the rules are to go into that neighborhood. And they weigh those and make sure that what they're doing is effective for that. They also look at protecting the neighborhood, and that's what I look at. And I think they did that. I think they looked at it and says, this does not fit. The first project that we had did not fit that area. What we passed tonight did fit that area, and I believe the Planning Commission would agree to that aspect. Also, I'd like to mention that Justin Anderson and our engineering staff, in working with UDOT and getting that access on Washington, it was a great help. That's not an easy fix in that, and I think they did a great job there. So I believe this program worked. It took a little bit longer, but it worked, and it'll be benefit for everyone, not only the community, but for the business that are there. So that's my statements at the present time.
Thank you, Councilmember Stevens. 2 things. We got it done by the end of October for you.
Yes, thank you.
And do you have a sense of what the time frame is for when we'll be washing our cars at your corner?
How fast, Chair Heyer, are you able to push Clint to review the plan?
I can't push Clint at all. He doesn't work for me.
Design plan application and building plans will be submitted as soon as possible.
Okay.
Can I add one comment?
Sure.
I also want to thank Justin for his work he did on the engineering
Absolutely.
side, but we've got to thank Glenn for how hard he's worked on this. We're I don't know if you guys don't know me from anyone else, but I'm a fish biologist for a living, so I'm not a community planner. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
And a Wildcat fan. But this really would have been difficult for the council to handle if not for the expertise of our staff, both of the administration and on the council. And we, in leadership, asked a ton of Glenn on this one in particular, and he just kept saying, you got it, going out and getting it done. So, Glenn, we always lean on you on that stuff and super appreciate what you did.
I echo that.
Yeah, he's been great.
Yeah, he's our hero. On planning issues, he's our hero, so we have to give the administration plenty of kudos also. Well, we better move on. Everybody okay with that? So, all right. Thank you all for coming on this one. The next item is concerning our Mountain View Community Plan Amendment and rezone of the property at 18th Street and Washington Boulevard.
Greg Montgomery will be making that presentation.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Montgomery.
We're just trying not to reset the computer.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Okay. So what you have for consideration tonight is a recommendation from the Planning Commission regarding two things. One is to amend the Mountain View Community Plan to adjust some language to allow the rezoning of the corner of 18th and Washington from the MU zone to the C2 and CO overlay. So the property, as I mentioned, is a site of the part of the site of the River Inn Motel. And in order to do this two-step process, well, that didn't work.
I don't think it's you. I think it's him.
The Planning Commission first took a look at a couple things. One is that rezoning the property in and of itself was a concern to go from a mixed-use zone where this is part of the river project to just an open C2 zone. The reason the petitioners were looking at C2 is because the MU would not allow a couple of things that they were looking for. One is a drive-up teller window, which was important for the credit union, and two was the parking standards in the MU zone. The parking standards try to reduce parking to get to a walkable neighborhood rather than be car dependent. But for the credit union, the number of parking spaces was important, so they petitioned to rezone to the C2, but knowing that a development agreement would also be part of that to control that this wouldn't be all types of C2 uses, but only this type of use would be appropriate to make the change. So they had presented a site plan showing the credit union located on the corner, so it'd have a corner presence. Parking would be screened by the building itself, and they would have circulation that would work both on 18th Street and on Washington Boulevard. That Washington Boulevard Drive would actually become a shared access for the future properties that would be developed to the south, and so that'd be only that one Washington Boulevard access. The building elevation is also important, trying to meet the character of the MU zone. And in this, the concept of the credit union, as the architect had explained to the Planning Commission, is really trying to pick up on the river theme, using stone, wood appearances, the metal decorative work on above the entrances has a flowing theme to it to reflect the river. And the elevations would be on all four sides so that we just wouldn't be interior oriented, but it'd be oriented to the entire community, 18th Street as well as Washington, as well as the interior developments that would take place in the future. The rezoning process, as I said, at first was inconsistent with the plan, so the plan had to be amended. The second part was looking at that amendment, saying, okay, what has changed? Well, the plan was developed in 2008 before the river project and the river master plan was actually developed. No development has occurred on that north side of the river since we've cleared the properties. And the concern was that existing motel and its image really is a hindrance to what is taking place. Those factors became important to the commission in saying that there is a reason to look at an amendment. And so in the language proposed to you in their recommendation is to add the language that on the corner of 18th and Washington, it could be developed as limited commercial that complements the MU zone. That then allowed the commission to say this would be appropriate with that language change to look at a development agreement in the C2 zoning. The other thing the commission looked at was the Riverbend master plan itself, noting that the corner of 18th and Washington is really one of the last phases to be built in the plan, and also there was no real fixed building types proposed in that plan. It could have a lot of variety of building types. And so that being the case, it was also felt that this would not be contrary to the River Master Plan. They then looked at the rezoning policies that exist and saw that this met those criteria of reflecting the character of the area. A new lot would be created for the credit union. The circulation system of sidewalks and drives would work to interact with the neighborhood, and that a conditional overlay would be the approach to take with the rezoning of the property. And the conditions then were established into the development agreement. So the Planning Commission has two recommendations to you. One is approval of the revisions to the Mountain View Community Plan. The one section I had outlined is in C3A. Second is to approve the rezoning from MU to C2 conditional overlay, and with a development agreement that limits the uses to a credit union. If not for the credit union, we wouldn't be rezoning it to C2. And that they could have the drive-up window and the architectural styles they proposed, taking care of the neighborhood on 18th Street by limiting the type of signage that could happen on 18th, having pedestrian connections, and the motel being removed, and the property is subdivided as part of this approval process.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Montgomery?
On the landscaping, the work into the river theme, are we going to use water-wise
Correct.
concept there?
Uh-huh. If you look at their illustration, those are some things they're taking a look at of doing that. Again, picking up that river theme.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. We have Nathan Shepard here, representing Mountain America Credit Union. Would you like to speak to the council?
Hello, Nathan Shepard. I'm a project manager with Mountain America Credit Union. We've had our eye on this site for a while now, and we're just really looking forward to being able to redevelop it and serve our members in the community. As you can see, Shane Sanders with Sanders Architects has designed a beautiful building and site, and we hope that it fits in well with kind of the future development that's planned for the that area. So we're both happy to answer any questions you have and appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Okay. We would like to receive public input on this petition. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this? Okay. Council members. Any thoughts, or can we move right to a resolution?
Oh, anybody, no questions?
But did you want to address or say anything? Okay.
Okay.
Then we're good.
Well, seeing no other questions, I'll make a motion that we adopt proposed ordinance 2018-30.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Nadolski, seconded by Councilmember Blair, to adopt ordinance 2018-30. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Chaburka?
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Vice Chair Nadolski?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye, that passes. And we have another ordinance. Do I get a motion on the second item?
I make a proposal that we adopt ordinance 2018-31.
I have a motion by Councilmember Stevens, seconded by Councilmember Lopez, to adopt ordinance 2018-31. This also is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka?
Aye.
Vice Chair Nadolski?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye, that also passes. Good luck with your project. I've got to also say I'm impressed by the architecture. I like the way it does fit in, and it's a good transition into that mixed-use zone. Good job. Way to go. Look forward to your project there. Okay, next item on our agenda is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding your concerns or ideas on any topic. Would anyone like to address the council? A lot of people thinking about it. Okay, it's not looking like it. Okay, seeing no movement, I guess we're scary. Comments from the mayor?
Just love to wish everybody happy Halloween. Get your trick-or-treaters out and keep them safe.
And council members, any comments?
The mayor addressed our mosquito abatement conference from the state, and we appreciate him coming over and doing that. And thank you, Mayor.
Okay, any other comments from council members? Okay, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion by Vice Chair Nadolski, seconded by Councilmember Lopez to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, we'll start the next meeting as soon as I get a thumbs up over here. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to our October 30th, 2018 Special Redevelopment Agency meeting. Let the roll call reflect that all board members are present, with the exceptions of Board Member White, who has asked to be excused tonight. The first item on our agenda is the reports from administration, participation and incentive agreement with the 2461 Adams Avenue LLC. Mr. Cooper, welcome.
Thank you. It's a long walk. So for your consideration tonight is Resolution 2018-10, which approves a participation and incentive agreement between the agency and the Peary Apartments for the renovation of that building located on roughly Adams and 25th Street into 12 new market rate units. So just briefly, I'd like to go over the Adams Reinvestment area in which this property is located. If you can squint, you can see the black box there, right center in the middle of the project area. And if you recall, this area was adopted on January 9th. The entire purpose of this was to do these such things, catalyze the reinvestment into some of these buildings that have not seen reinvestment or much of an investment in recent years. This area did not have a finding of blight, therefore did not include eminent domain. It did require a project area plan and budget to be approved going forward with any participation and incentive agreements. And so that's what we're looking at tonight. We have most of the budget still available in order to make these types of commitments as requested. That number of $7.9 million available has been reduced a little bit based on a previous decision made by the board to provide an incentive to the Monarch project. So we're working with a little bit less than the 7.9, but it's well within the request that we're talking about tonight. So the terms and conditions of the agreement are that the developer would receive a $300,000 maximum incentive over a period of 20 years. The transmittal, I believe, says 25, but the actual agreement is 20 years, so until 2038. The building must be completed by October 31st of next year. Again, there's some revisions in the packet, I think on page 6 and page 12 of the agreement. We've amended those dates from the work session, so that new date is October 31st of 2019. And if that date is met and the building is placed on the tax rolls that following year and starts to generate new tax above and beyond what was originally there in tax year 2018, then an incentive would be created up to $300,000, which then would be given to the developer post-performance in an annualized basis for 20 years, not to exceed $300,000. So that's essentially the gist of it. We're looking forward to see the renovation of that building. It used to be, I believe, 14 apartments that catered to some of the extremely low and low income folks in the neighborhood. That property lost its accreditation for that program, and so now we get to see a historic property return to productive use and provide some living units for some of the folks that want to live in that new creative district and in the East Central neighborhood. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Cooper?
How does this affect our low-income housing inventory since it lost its accreditation there? Will we have to develop other low-income housing because of this?
We're of the belief that we have a surplus of low-income housing as it relates to what HUD's requirement is of us as an entitlement city and in comparison to other cities in the county. So even though this building is moving from a low-income status to a market rate status, it still is very affordable given its size, the unit sizes, and there still is plenty of stock in the community to cater to those who need an affordable option through either vouchers or other things like that. We're constantly looking at converting some of these properties to a market rate condition, certainly, but also seeing any type of upgrade that we can get, because our issue, in addition to having an excess of low-income properties, we also face the condition. We generally have too many substandard properties as well. So that's how we approach some of these problems.
So on the apartments, you say the market rate, what type of apartments are going in there? Do you know how they're going to do that?
Largely one bedrooms. The 2 bedrooms are few. I believe there's a den scenario in there as well, but they're largely going to be a 1 and 2, around 1,000 square feet.
Any other questions for Brandon? Okay, thank you. All right. Look for a motion. Oh, let me see. Is there any public input? I'm seeing that everybody cleared out, so.
You have something to say, Brandon?
Yeah, okay, all right. So let's have a motion then, please.
Chair, I'll provide a motion for proposed resolution 2018-10 to approve the incentive agreement.
Okay.
I will second that.
We have a motion by Board Member Choberka, second by Board Member Blair, to adopt Resolution 2018-10. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Blair?
Aye.
Board Member Traburka?
Aye.
Board Member Lopez?
Aye.
Board Member Stevens?
Aye.
Vice Chair Nadolski?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye. Well, that passes. Okay, next item on our agenda is public comments. I think we're going to have the same luck with public comment. So, comments from the Executive Director.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
And board members.
I do have a comment.
Yes, Board Member Choberka.
Board, yeah. I just want to say, I really love this project, and I love the direction we're going with many of these properties. I really look forward to continuing the conversation, with staff and among the council about this housing issue, because it's a deep concern of mine. I mean, I live right in that neighborhood. I've seen several houses recently. When you look back at the tax record, people have purchased them for such a low amount, and now they're trying to resell them at these crazy, I would consider crazy amounts. And they haven't really invested anything at all into the homes. And it just really, I think it kind of undercuts those efforts that all of us have that are living there and actually investing and wanting to build the community in a different way. I know we live in a capitalist society, and that's the way things kind of work, but I also just feel like I have concerns, about where the vulnerable populations are going when these kinds of things are happening. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation extended and to really understand it more deeply. I'm just beginning to understand it, so I want to keep talking about it.
Thank you for that. You were at our leadership meeting a week and a half ago and brought up some points that were enlightening to me, and I'll give you my word that I'll continue that conversation with you. I think that is something that we do need to converse about and look for solutions. To Board Member Stevens' point and Mr. Cooper's, Ogden is in kind of a precarious position with respect to that, where we do have a lot of, we're carrying the whole county, essentially for our low-income housing, and we've got to find ways to expand that into the county. And maybe that's where that discussion moves, is how to do that. It's, anyway, but yeah, I want to have that same conversation with you, so thank you for bringing that up. Any other comments from board members?
I think what we've seen here this evening, and we can go back to the council meeting, but this project here not only helps enhance our city and our neighborhoods, it shows that with the two businesses that we reviewed this evening, that Ogden is still moving forward in a positive direction, and it'll be a benefit to our citizens of what we've done here this evening. And so I think it's been a very productive evening for Ogden City.
Okay, thank you. I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Nadolski, second by Board Member Lopez to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thanks, everyone.